This Sunday at the Eucharist, we have two readings that are very complementary. We will start with something from the First Testament, from Micah, where the prophet asks, what does the Lord require? As kind of a rhetorical statement, and then answers it ultimately by saying, this is the sacrifice that God expects, for you to love justice, show kindness, and walk humbly before your God. Truly, words to live by, and a fairly tall standard for us all to try to have in our own lives. And then following right after that in the Gospel, we have one of the versions of the Beatitudes, that passage from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And the two are very complementary. This idea of living our lives in a way showing God's mercy and grace, and especially God's kindness to everyone around us as a way of interacting with the kingdom of God. And so throughout the morning, we'll be singing some hymns as well as the choral anthems that will pick up on those themes. Most especially that sequence hymn that links the two readings. We'll be singing that wonderful text, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see our God." A really very direct rumination on the Beatitudes, but then also calling us to that act of kindness that we can put out into the world. And there's also a little bit implied in all of that, especially in the Beatitudes, this idea of long-suffering, about that we are going to show kindness to others even when kindness is not shown to us first. And one of the most beautiful poems in the Christian tradition that expresses that is originally a German text that was written by Paul Fleming in the very early 18th century. And this is, of course, after the 30 Years' War and after some really terrible social upheaval in Germany. And he writes these words, "Don't let anything grieve you or distress you. Stay firm in God's will, knowing that what God ordains is always for the best." So picking up again on sort of that tail end of the Beatitudes and calling us to see a bigger vision of what life is all about. The choir will be singing a setting of this in German, "Lass dich nur nicht dauern," by the 19th century composer Johannes Brahms, a very familiar name for people that go to the symphony or who took piano lessons when they were young. And this is a piece that Brahms wrote as somewhat of a compositional exercise. He was trying to practice the craft of composition, and he set before himself a rather daunting task. So we all know the idea of singing a round, where we all sing "Row, row, row your boat," coming in at different times, but we're all coming in with the same pitches. For this, it is a round between the sopranos and the tenors, and a different round, a different melody that's being sung by the altos and basses. But to make it even more complicated, rather than having it in octaves, Brahms has his coming in an octave and a step apart. So they're not coming in octaves, they're actually coming in a step away from each other. And the altos do the same thing. Their first line, but the basses don't sing the same pitches. They sing it a step below plus an octave. Which of course sounds terrible if you were to sing it together. But when they sing it staggered, it becomes beautiful. The soprano entrance, and then the tenors. Really amazing craft, and yet it's so effortless and so beautiful that you don't get hung up on the technicalities. You can hear just that expression in it. And of course, we have a lot of other great music in the service. And then we have Evensong this afternoon at 4:45 with a prelude that will be played by John Brock, and some really brilliant Epiphany music that really pictures the stars and the shining down from the heavens. So we invite you to come and worship with us throughout the day, in the morning and in the afternoon, here at St. John's Cathedral.